Hope everybody is doing well. It's a pleasant day here in Durham, North Carolina. I actually went to the Hayti Heritage Center yesterday, and I'll be going back there later on today. But yesterday there were some musicians and hip hop performers that were saluting Outkast because this week they're actually having a celebration of hip hop music, and all along those lines. Hold on one second. A frog in the throat. That never works and everything. So let me grab a glass of water and get back to the conversation. So hold on one second.
Hi, my name is Kim Green, and I am one of the founders of Black, Bases Loaded, Authentic Clothing and Caps, spelled with a K. We have the distinct pleasure every day of introducing the world to people that have had a tremendous impact on our country. In doing so, we're allowing the accomplishments of these groups to both be celebrated and acknowledged, while our customers are provided the opportunity to commemorate them with high quality and stylish attire. Black specializes in licensed apparel for Negro League Baseball, Buffalo Soldiers, and the Tuskegee Airmen. We started Black to act as an educational partner to museums nationwide to not only inform everyday Americans on Black history, but to celebrate the individuals that played on segregated sports teams and served in segregated units of the military. The problem we're solving is twofold. One, Black history, which is American history, has been excluded from the core curriculum in our children's schools. And two, when we started the company, it was and really still is hard to find high quality Black history apparel. Our goal is to change both of those things.
I just saw her last week and everything at a theater festival, and she's doing quite well, selling different things, including some things from the Negro League and all along those lines. So I just actually saw her at an event in Winston-Salem and all along those lines. But I've got my guest with me who is definitely very much involved in the entertainment world and all along those lines, and the media world as well. But like I said, I was actually having a relaxing day because yesterday we had an event at Hayti. So there was some performers that were doing the music of Outkast, because all of this week they're going to be doing a week-long hip-hop celebration. As a matter of fact, on Friday they'll be sharing a classic movie, that movie called Beat Street, and I think that's free if I remember correctly, but that'll be taking place at the Hayti Heritage Center. And of course there's still remnants of Debbie and all along those lines because of the storm that hit the East Coast, and now we're waiting to see what the one that's got an E name will do. I think it's Alberto or something like that. I can't remember the name, but it's another storm that might be hitting Puerto Rico, and then if it hits Puerto Rico, it might decide it wants to come this way as well. Mom lives in Rocky Mount, and I was talking to her earlier, and she was telling me that there is some flooding in that particular town and all along those lines, but it wasn't impacting her house, and she had seen the turkeys doing their impersonation of ducks, because she does have some turkeys and some deer that are there in her yard and all along those lines, but they were not doing an impersonation of a duck as of yet because it wasn't overly bad flooding, even though we're expecting some more rain later today. And there's that lovely thing that we have here in the South. I don't think y'all have it as much in the West, called humidity. So we've definitely been dealing with that lovely humidity and all along those lines. And I had a friend that was actually visiting, and it's actually the lady that does K-Pasta in my hair, and she was visiting in Greensboro, and she was noticing the humidity and also how sometimes in the South the allergies can flare up as well because of the pollen and other things that can be in the dust and all in that space. So the South has its benefits and its wonders, but it also has some disadvantages as well. So that's one of the things that she was observing as she was down in Greensboro. So like I say, I do know that over there in the West Coast, y'all have to deal with wildfires. Maybe not tornadoes, but you have to deal with wildfires and other things like that. So every place has its things that are part of its good and part of its bad as well. So I know that that's something that you can relate to as one that has talked to a number of celebrities and all along those lines, because I know that when I first heard about you through Harlan and some other people, I was like, this man actually got to talk to Nicole Johnson's family, because we do know that a lot of people have been paying attention even to the history of O.J. Simpson and all along those lines. So definitely a lot of folks are paying attention to that, just like they're paying attention to the Olympics that will be coming our way. Well, actually, they'll be coming your way because they'll be in Los Angeles, and one of our host on this show, he has his own show, but he is also a regular on our new show, is Rick Rosner, who is a very much well-known Jimmy Kimmel writer, but also a person that is a member of the Mensa Society. And I know he's lobbying, and I mean lobbying hard, for y'all to move it away from July and August, because y'all have been brutally hot lately, and he's thinking that maybe the Olympics in 2028 needs to be held in May if we're going to be having this kind of weather and everything like that. So I don't know what your take is on the Olympics coming there to Los Angeles because I know a lot of people are also concerned because I do know that that area has had its problem, just like we have in the South with homelessness and everything along those lines. So they're trying to figure out how they're going to clean it up in order to have these successful Olympics. And it looks like Paris was having fun, even though some people were upset over the opening ceremony. I actually thought it was a ode to Dionysus and not necessarily an ode to the Last Supper, but that's up to others to debate and all in that space. But I just wanted your take just in general because I did have fun watching some sports that I didn't even have not been a fan of in the past, probably because I don't watch a lot of it. But water polo caught my attention, as did volleyball, which I know is very big in the West and everything, and even some other sports like handball caught my attention, and table tennis, because I'm still, even though I used to play as a kid, trying to figure out those angles that the players were getting to get the ball just there on the edge so they can score a point and everything. So, William, if you'll share a little bit about yourself and all you've got going on, including this amazing book that you got out now, and we'll just get into a casual conversation, and I do hope the weather is treating you well.
Yeah, well, that was quite an introduction. It was 10 minutes. It's nice to be able to speak and tell you about my book. Have you had a chance to read my book at all or get familiar with it at all?
I got familiar with it a little bit, got a chance to read some of the things, but I haven't read the entirety of the book, so you'll be informing me a lot about the book, and I'm hoping to get a copy of the book. And I know all the authors that we have, either myself or Shaquille, who's one of our fellow panelists that lives in Australia, as well as Nick, buys copies of the books of the authors, and we have a bookstore that is part of Pod TV, because Pod TV is a live streaming network. So if you go to podtv.tv, you'll see that we have an Amazon bookstore. So anybody that has a book, we put it on the bookstore. So hopefully our listeners can also get a copy of the book. So we're hoping that we can boost yourselves in that way, because we do put all the authors on their books on the store so that they can make a profit by getting some book sales.
Okay, well, yeah. I mean, the book came out July 11th, and it's called When You Step Upon a Star, Cringeworthy Confessions of a Tabloid Bad Boy. And I've been an entertainment journalist for the past 30 years, and most of my interviews have gone very well. But these are the stories that did not go well. For whatever reason, I asked the wrong question, or during my years at the National Enquirer, I had to sneak into weddings and funerals and steal celebrities' garbage. And I have celebrities like Bruce Willis and Kelsey Grammer threatening my life. I remember back in the day, the host of Soul Train, forgive me, for what was his name? I'm forgetting his name.
Don Cornelius.
Don Cornelius, thank you. I'm sorry. He threatened to come break my leg. So, you know, I rubbed a lot of celebrities the wrong way over the years, but I feel like through this book, I was able to kind of come clean about my sins and apologize. And to those who are still living, I was able to apologize to them personally. And some of them chose to write essays in my book where they talked about their perspective on our encounters.
Well, talking about perspectives, one of the things I've talked about on this network, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about it, is sometimes, because you mentioned the National Enquirer, opportunities are given your way, but you miss those opportunities and all along those lines. Because I used to go regularly, me and two friends of mine, down to the American Black Film Festival, which for a number of years now has been in South Beach. But there is a very popular basketball player. As a matter of fact, he was just part of the Olympic team, LeBron James and everything. But when he first got picked by his first team, I believe it was the Cleveland Cavaliers, and all along those lines, he went down there and he was going to a disco, for lack of a better term, and everything. And I went there with a friend of mine who is a journalism professor currently, and he's also runs an open mic. But at that time, he was a TV producer and everything, and he's been a TV producer. I think it was for one of the ABC affiliates at that time, and all along those lines. But LeBron was confronted by a bouncer. The bouncer happened to be, and I know this is in the news quite a bit now, transvestite, and he was asked tall.
Well, listen, I'm gonna stop you right there. The term transvestite is not used anymore. That's considered politically incorrect. That's the way, you know, Archie Bunker and George Jefferson used to talk about back in the 70s. But transvestite is actually a derogatory term now.
Well, thank you for correcting me on that, because I do not like to be derogatory. I like to be journalistically correct. I do have a journalism degree, so I appreciate you telling me that.
Sure. No, absolutely. I put my foot in my mouth all the time. I make mistakes all the time. And if I say something wrong, please correct me as well, Mark.
No, I would definitely do that. I appreciate
Thank
you
you.
doing that for me and everything. So that is great that you did that. But whatever the term is, he was a young 18, 19-year-old. So I don't even think he was legally able to get into the club. But what I remember of that was me and the two friends that used to go regularly. Saw this particular individual taking off his outfit and the attire that he was wearing that was very feminine oriented, even though he was a tall African American man, and was getting ready to confront LeBron and his handlers at that particular time. And to this day, we still tease Brett, that is my friend and everything, because we're like, of all the times that you didn't have to have your camera, when we know that the National Enquirer and some of the other tabloids are down the road there in South Florida, this would be the time that you didn't have any camera, so we didn't get any pictures of that, because we have jokingly said that we could have made some money. I don't even know how much they were paying, because it would have been in the 80s and the maybe the 90s. I think it was the 80s when he first got drafted and everything, so I don't even know how much they were paying at that particular time, but probably not what we were dreaming we could have made from turning it into the National Enquirer. But as one that used to work for the National Enquirer, can you make any money that way? Because like I said, we teased Brett about that, because no pictures were taken, even though he was being confronted as an underage person, because he's definitely well into his adult years now and everything. And we were going like, why did you have your camera? You're a TV producer.
Yeah, I think you were talking about the home offices in Lantana, Florida. That's where the Enquirer was based for many, many years. There was that anthrax scare in the early 2000s. And one of the Enquirer journalists opened up an envelope, and there was anthrax in there, and he died. And they, of course, cleared out that whole bureau and sealed up the building. And so that meant that all the Enquirer secrets were not accessible. I don't know actually what happened with that building, but I mean, I know in there was a safe, and in that safe they had lots of blackmail photos of different celebrities, and they were able to get people on the phone to talk about kind of innocuous things, because the celebrities knew that if they didn't play ball with the Enquirer, that the Enquirer would release their dirty little secrets. And I remember when I started at the Enquirer, I was really surprised that Bill Cosby, who was, a huge celebrity at the time, I adored him, and I loved the Cosby Show, always will. But he would come on the phone to talk about Father's Day stories and being a good dad. And it was very curious to me why a beloved, huge star like Bill Cosby would come on the phone. And now I know the reason is all these things that have come out about Mr. Cosby, the drugging of women and raping them. The Enquirer knew this back in the time, and they kept it quiet in exchange for making a deal with Bill. He would come and talk about kind of innocuous things as long as the Enquirer kept his big secrets.
Oh, I didn't realize that. That's amazing that you have that story and all along those lines. You actually mentioned something else that I'd be curious about, because it's coming back to Brett and my friends in the TV business. And I imagine the same thing happens with newspapers and everything. Yeah. Are you sometimes surprised at how much things are lost? Because one of the things that I'm big on, because even at the cultural center I work on, I'm a historian, or one of their historians, and I know that there have been people, including like Dick Gregory, that did speeches there, but unfortunately they were not recorded, and all along those lines, so and they are now lost and everything. Because even Brett, because he, like I said, he was at that time, I think WTVD was an ABC affiliate, but at some point, they were doing a cleanup and doing like a remodeling, and they decided to toss away some of their major interviews and major things that had happened, not realizing the importance of what they had. So either as a personal individual or as networks and newspapers, do you feel that sometimes there's not enough responsibility to maintain the records that exist of some of these amazing interviews?
Yeah, I mean, I can only speak personally that I kept everything. I was sort of a hoarder. Right. So in the 30 years I was working as a journalist, I kept every reporter notebook. I kept every photograph. There were over 200 photographs of me and celebrities in the book to kind of prove that I was there with them. I kept every clipping of every article that I ever did. And then it was really during the quarantine that I was able to sit with all of these bins of items that I'd saved and listened to every tape recorded interview with a lot of celebrities who are no longer alive, no longer with us anymore. And then I decided what should be saved, what could be thrown away, because you just can't keep everything. Right. I mean, it just becomes, you're living in a museum. So when I went through all those items, I decided what would be the basis of my book. And I really felt that the stories that were most cringeworthy were the ones that people cared most about. You know, when I was hiding in trees, I hid in a tree at Dean Martin's funeral, and I stole Kelsey Grammer's garbage to find out what kinds of things he was into. And I was thrown out of, weddings. And John Candy, the big comedian from Trains, Planes, and Automobiles and Spaceballs, I was thrown out of his funeral as Rhea Perlman, Danny DeVito, and Dan Aykroyd were watching me. I was so ashamed and embarrassed about that. So, yeah, I mean, I kept as much as I could. And, things have changed so much because back when I was working at the Inquirer, the internet was really just starting. So we depended upon a research department. And there were 3 older women who ran this library. And you would, if you were doing a story on Lena Horne and you need to find out when Lena Horne was born, now we just go on the computer and look it up. But back then we had to call the research department. They had to go to these encyclopedias and look up when so-and-so was born or when they died, when they got married, what their children's names were. So that whole department now, research departments, are basically wiped out and gone. And it's a shame because, it's just all these people that are out of work now. But technology, as we know, has led to the dissolution of many, many jobs.
No, totally about that. I know one of the first interviews that you landed, I alluded to it earlier, I just think I missaid the name and everything, but a lot of folks to this day still talk about O.J. Simpson, who recently passed away, as to whether he was guilty or not guilty and everything. And I do know that there's a lot of conversations even around estates now and everything. So I just wanted your talk or take on Nicole Brown Simpson and O.J. Simpson, because you actually had one of the first interviews literally days after that murder and everything. So I just wanted your take on, one, getting that interview, and 2, your take on that particular case, as we just recently lost OJ not that long ago. And no matter what we think about his guilt or non-guilt, he was definitely a football legend and everything in that space. So I just wanted your take on landing that first interview.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, personally, OJ was one of my heroes. I mean, I grew up just with dreaming of meeting him one day, and he was just beloved by everybody, whatever race or wherever you were from. I mean, OJ was just Americana. And I remember when I then rediscovered him in the Naked Gun movies, and I just thought he was so funny. And there was an episode of I was a big Lucille Ball fan. There was an episode of the Lucy Show when OJ guest starred on that. So I don't know. I almost feel like there were 2 different OJs. I mean, I don't know if something occurred to him later in life. I personally am 100% convinced that he was the murderer of Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman. But yes, I mean, he existed to a lot of people as a hero for a long time. And, it's just very sad the way things turned out. But yes, I was assigned to get the first interview with Nicole Brown Simpson's family 3 days after she was buried. And so they lived in a gated community, and I wasn't sure how to get to them. I tried grocery deliveries and was turned away by the guards, and flower deliveries, they turned me away. So ultimately I parked at a Ritz-Carlton hotel, which was just next to their gated community. I ran on the beach. I hopped a fence, and I worked my way up to their front door. I rang the doorbell, and the Brown family's housekeeper answered the door and said, "How can I help you?" I said, "I'm here to see Mrs. Brown." And the housekeeper led me through the house, and there was Nicole's mother, Juditha, and her 3 sisters sitting around a photo of Nicole crying. And Mrs. Brown took my hand and said, "Thank you so much for coming. How did you know my daughter?"
Wow.
So I did not have an answer prepared because I never thought I would get this far. But I ended up asking her a question about how she told the grandchildren that their mommy was gone, dead. And she told me a lovely story about how she said that mommy will always be looking out for you. She's an angel now, and now you have 4 mommies. Me and your 3 aunts will be looking out for you. And I ran the story exactly as they told me, and I think they were quite pleased with the sensitivity that I showed to the interview. Yes, it was a gross invasion of their privacy, and I apologize for that. But I think that they were very frustrated because all the talk had been about OJ, and they wanted the narratives shifted to the victim. They wanted Nicole's stories to be told, and to have people get a sense of what she was like as a woman and as a mother. So that invasion of their privacy led to a relationship with the Browns and the Inquirer that lasted for years.
Wow. What kind of impression did you get as far as how, because a lot of people are thinking about parenthood and all along those lines? I mean, we got a lot of blended families and all in that space, and a lot of people that even to this day, and they were one of the early pioneers in that biracial families and everything. So, what kind of impression did you get that Nicole Brown Simpson was as a parent from her mother and her sisters when you had that interview, and maybe even subsequent interviews that you've had with family members as well? So, what kind of parent do you think that she was or would have been if she had continued living?
Boy, that's a really good question, Mark. And I mean, I really would just be guessing. I mean, of course, when a woman is murdered, her mother is going to say that she was an amazing mother, and maybe she was. I mean, I'm sure she loved those children. She also was a single woman who wanted to date and have a full life, and that's always a challenge for any of us in terms of how much we can go out on our own when we're having to raise young children. I don't know. I mean, from everyone who spoke on her behalf, they said she was a lovely mother. And I'll say this: I'll say that when Mrs. Brown died, when Juditha Brown passed away, I found out the news from OJ. OJ released a video. He had apparently stayed in touch with his children's grandmother, with Nicole's mother, and that didn't really surprise me, because even though Mrs. Brown was convinced that OJ had killed her daughter, she told me that she would do anything possible to stay in touch with her grandchildren, and that meant having a relationship with her father, because he was raising them when he was found not guilty. And I can't imagine how incredibly difficult it would be when you believe that your daughter was killed by her husband, and then have to turn those grandchildren over to the man that you believe is a murderer. But she was a loving grandmother, and she, like I said, maintained that relationship with those children up until the very end. And I know that OJ spoke very kindly of her when she passed.
Well, how difficult do you think it is along those same lines? Because I've actually am friends because of the international, it used to be called the National Black Theater Festival, with Petrie Bird, who was the bailiff on Judge Judy. I think he still has that role and everything.
Oh yeah. I met him. He's a great guy. Yeah,
He's a great guy.
I produced a morning talk show for a few years, and he came on as my guest. And great sense of humor. Really awesome guy.
He's very awesome, but I know he just was not that long ago married, because he was married later in life and everything like that. So he's got a wife, but I do know that from that same festival, and speaking of people that passed, Ruby and Ozzy definitely had that legacy of being a long loving family. Actually, the guy center
adored them. I had the luck of being at the Screen Actors Guild Award when they gave the Lifetime Achievement Award to Ruby and Ozzy. And boy, what a wonderful couple they were. What an example to all of us about having a happy, successful relationship. Boy, I wish I'd had a chance to actually interview them, but I didn't.
I never had a chance to interview them, but I did get a chance to meet them a couple of times. Actually, she had a play called My One Good Nerve and everything that was touring, and actually it toured at the Cultural Arts Center that I work at and everything. And Ozzy decided to surprise her on their anniversary. So he literally popped up unbeknownst and everything and snuck in there, and I think gave her some flowers, and they went off probably to dinner or something else to celebrate an anniversary, because she was literally having a run. I think it was like maybe a 4 or 5 day run of that particular play. But I was just pleasantly surprised at that success. But we hear so many stories about divorces happening in Hollywood, or folks that are not making it, even though you have some people like Jada and Will, I believe, that have what some people think of as an open relationship and all along those lines. But it's one that has been obsessed apparently with Hollywood stars since being a kid and everything. How easy do you think it is, one, for child actors to make it, and two, for relationships to make it in that bubble of Hollywood?
Well, how about child stars making it? I just actually recently interviewed 2 child stars who really had a very tough time of it. I interviewed Danny Bonaducci from the Partridge Family and Mackenzie Phillips from One Day at a Time, and they both battled drug addiction, and they both came from very, very troubled homes. Mackenzie Phillips, talked about how her father introduced her to drugs. They would do drugs together, and then he ended up raping her. He had sex with her many times and kind of brainwashed her into thinking that it was consensual sex. So I just don't think she didn't have a chance, whether she became a dentist or an actress or whatever. I mean, what was done to her was really going to mess her up. So, and the same with Danny Bonaducci. I mean, he told me that his father was incredibly abusive to him. So I think we hear about these troubled stars just because they came into the spotlight. I mean, there's so many homes where children are being horribly abused that we just never know about. And a lot of these children end up turning to drugs and committing suicide. So I think that Danny and Mackenzie Phillips are both examples of how you can change. And even my book, talks about how it's never too late to change. I made a lot of mistakes, back in the day, doing high-speed chases with Elizabeth Taylor and Britney Spears, and like I mentioned, crashing weddings of Melissa Gilbert and Meredith Baxter from Family Ties. But it's never too late to change. You can learn from your mistakes and alter your behavior, or you can't. You can't change the past. What you can do is learn from the past and make different decisions to become a different man going forward.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. And speaking of mistakes that people have made and everything, I know that one of the things that I got from Harlan, as well as other people in terms of doing research, is it has seemed to become more acceptable in society for folks to be part of the LGBTQIA community. That wasn't always the case. There were a number of people that were in the closet for whatever reasons and everything. Because I even remember when AIDS first came out, one of the early people that was on one of those magazines actually worked on one of my worked in my parents' radio station. It was in Warren County here in North Carolina, but Warren was definitely part of that community and everything. But that was when AIDS came out, like in the late 70s, early 80s and everything. And it sounds like you are part of that community and everything, but you are also trying to get celebrities to expose some of their secrets, including coming out out of the closet if they were in the closet. So I was just wondering how that dichotomy worked in your own life, and at what point you decided to be open about your own desires and background.
Yeah, sure. Well, I write about in the book when I was snooping into celebrities' private lives. I was keeping secrets about my own life. I was living a very hypocritical life. I was deeply in the closet. And why is that the case? Well, I guess a lot of reasons. I was an only child. I was raised Catholic, and it was taught to us that homosexuality was a sin. As an only child, my mom put all of her hopes of being a grandmother on me, and that meant to her at the time marrying a woman and having children. And then also on TV, there were just so few examples of normal, happy gay people. I mean, you mentioned earlier, the word transvestite, and I think a lot of people back then, and maybe to this day, still think that all gay men want to dress up as women and be women. I mean, that couldn't be further from the truth for me. I love being a man, and I don't ever want to become a woman. Listen, there are people who do want to change their bodies, and I think that's perfectly their right to do whatever they want. I don't know why any of us care about somebody we don't even know what they want to do to themselves. I mean, as long as they're not hurting anybody else, let them do what they feel they're going to do to make themselves happy. So I can tell you, when I was at the Inquirer, a lot of the journalists there had their own secrets. They were having extramarital affairs, and they were not the best parents. They had moments when they went into rages. But we all have secrets. Right. We all have things that we don't necessarily want to talk to people about. But I knew that if I was living a life that was a lie to myself, that I was never going to be fully happy. It would mess me up in the head. And I remember people would ask me, so, what did you do this weekend? And instead of saying that I went on a date with a guy, I would say, nothing. And what happened is I fell in love with somebody. I fell in love with somebody who turned out to be another man. And it just made me so happy that I wanted to share that with my friends. And I'm very lucky that out here in Los Angeles, I know people think that it's all crazies out here. And but what I've really enjoyed about living out here in LA is that you can be who you want to be. You can have friends of all different races, and you can be in a relationship with somebody of a different race, and you can be with whoever you fall in love with. And I know that it's with my partner now, when we're walking out in public, we feel comfortable holding hands just like any other couple can. And we're at a point now where we're thinking about leaving Los Angeles for a variety of reasons, and we're wanting to start up in a new community, in a new part of the country. And one of the things we're asking ourselves is, will we be accepted? Will we be allowed to walk hand in hand in public? And I guess I'll ask you that, Mark. I mean, in your experience, if you were to see two, men walking hand in hand out in the mall or out on the street, what would your reaction be to that?
Yeah, but when I have a negative reaction, I have friends that are part of that community. As a matter of fact, I'll see one of them because she is a activist and all along those lines. So I'll see her and her lover that's coming. I think it's this Thursday is when she's doing her presentation. But Alexis Pauline Gumpsey is a activist, writer, and definitely a historian as well. And I've seen her and Sangori, I believe is her lover's name, because I don't think they're married, if I'm remembering correctly. But definitely it's accepted. But the thing about North Carolina is, as you know, we are a swing state, and North Carolina is a very unusual state in that there are some states, cities that are very liberal. Durham is very liberal. As a matter of fact, I was on the selection committee, even though I'm a heterosexual male and everything, for the Out South, which is our gay and lesbian, it used to be called the Gay and Lesbian Film Festival, and it's actually still going on. The primary dates were this past weekend, but they extended it until I want to say this Friday and everything. But it is definitely a community that is very liberal, and it is not unusual to see two men walking down the street, or even two women walking down the street, and all along those lines. But coming back to my questions for you, because it kind of ties to what you just asked me, and I'd like these interviews where it's back and forth, and particularly if you got two journalists, it's going to be back and forth, which is kind of something that I enjoy and everything. But one of the things it complains about on this network, and I don't necessarily agree with some of the people that make the complaint, is that some people feel that we've gone too far to the other side, and they get frustrated because they see what you just said. They see the gay couple that are characters on some of the TV shows and something along those lines. And I do know that I have some associates of this network, Pod TV, that sometimes complain about that it's gone too far to the extreme. I personally think that they are wrong, but I'd love to hear your take on that, because that's part of that whole notion about woke politics and everything. So I just wondering, do you sometimes feel that there are a pushback to some of the gains that have been made both by African Americans as well as those in the LGBTQIA community and everything? So I just wondering, do you feel some of that pushback? Because I even see that in some of my fellow panelists.
Well, yeah, I mean, sure. But I think that people who have a hard time seeing gay people on TV, first I would say to them, back when I was a kid, there were three choices to watch. It was ABC, NBC, or CBS.
Right.
And if you didn't like, watching, I don't know, if you didn't like watching Little House on the Prairie, you could turn the channel and watch Good Times. Right. You can find something that appealed to you. And today we have 300 channels. So, I mean, if there's something that you see that's you don't like, or it just doesn't call to you, then don't watch it. Turn the channel, but don't obsess over what other people want to watch. I just think that it's great that there's a lot of diversity. I think people are sick of that word, but it's fantastic. I mean, I got to say, I just had the good fortune recently of moderating a panel with the cast of Good Times and What's Happening. And some of these people have become my friends. And I'm really happy to say that. But back when I was a kid, the shows Good Times and What's Happening were known as the black shows.
Right, exactly.
And yeah, and they were, but that's a shame. I mean, there should just be shows,
Right.
TV shows, not the gay shows or the black shows. And at that time, even though there were only a couple of shows with black cast members, that was too much black on TV for some people. Yeah. They thought, why are we having to see black people on TV? Well, fuck them. I'm sorry if I'm using that word, but I do have to use that word now. Thank God that there are so many choices now. We can watch television shows with people who are black, who are Asian, who are white, who are Hispanic. Thank God we have that diversity. And if any of those people who were upset that they weren't being represented back in the day are now upset that there are too many gay shows, well, I'd say that's very hypocritical. I mean, let people be shown. Don't hide people, because if you don't see people, then you're going to have preconceived notions of what people are. If you don't see a show like Will and Grace or Glee, where there's a happy, healthy couple who happen to be men having a normal life with friends who are straight and gay and old and young, and they have grandparents. If you don't see that, then you're going to assume, yeah, gay people are all wanting to be women and they want to, molest our children, and these old stereotypes. And thank God that I've had a chance to at first, see representations on TV of families that don't look like mine. I mean, the Huxtables, I love the Huxtables. And they weren't a black family. They were just a family on TV who were funny. And I wish that I'd been able to have siblings. I was an only child. I wish that I'd had siblings like Theo and Denise and Rudy and Vanessa to be my siblings. And I think because I was able to see that we're all very similar, that allowed me to open up my friendship to people who were all different. I didn't think, oh, I can't be friends with somebody who's black because they're a certain way. No, we all have things that we can connect over. There are things that make us different, but there are a lot more things that connect us that we have in common. You just have to give yourself an opportunity to open yourself up to getting to know people who don't necessarily look like you or believe the same way you do. I have a friend who's Mormon, mm-hmm. and I think his particular religion believes that homosexuality is a sin. And we became such good friends. He said, you know what, that's what my religion teaches me, but you know what, I hope they're wrong about that, because I can't imagine not being in heaven with you. Right. And there are some people, listen, who they want to believe whatever their religion teaches them without any fault. That's just the way it is. You know what? If you look at the Bible, and dinosaurs did not exist. That, according to the Bible, dinosaurs did not exist. According to the Bible, a rib was taken from Adam to create Eve. Well, you can believe that that's exactly what happened. You can believe that these are parables. People wrote to kind of express what was not quite known about the world at that time. Or you can think, that there are certain parts of the Bible that call to me, that I believe that Jesus was born. He was given to us by God as our Savior to teach us lessons. And some people may just decide to reject certain parts that just don't seem to gel with what we've learned now through science. I believe that Jesus Christ is my Savior, but maybe I do believe that dinosaurs existed. Maybe we did evolve from earlier species based on bones that have been discovered. So what I've always believed, Mark, is that God created me with a brain, right. and God created me with a brain to question, not just to be a zombie and sort of just accept what everyone's telling me to believe. I don't think it's a sin to question. I think God would encourage us to use our brains and try to figure out these puzzles. We have all this information. The Bible's one thing, and then what science has brought us knowledge of is one thing, and we can look at all this and use our own brains to try to figure out what our truth is. And I personally don't think that God would begrudge us from questioning.
Speaking of the question and everything, and I agree with everything you're saying and everything, but there is a fourth channel that you forgot in the young channels, which we had, which you mentioned, the three major networks, but there was also PBS, and actually, as we have recently learned, one of those PBS heroes actually also came out before he passed and everything, because I think that Mr. Rogers definitely came out with a lot of things of his past, including some less than colorful things of his past. And
wait a minute, what, Mr. Well, first of all, I love Sesame Street, and Sesame Street was one of the perfect examples of me learning about people who are white and black and Hispanic living together. I mean, I loved White Bob, just as much as I loved David and Susan and Gordon and Mr. Hooper and Maria and Luis. They were just a community of people who maybe looked a little bit different, just like the puppets. Some
Right.
were green, like Kermit the Frog. Some were yellow, like Bert and Ernie,
Right.
or pink, like Miss Piggy. But they all could form a community together. Now, I mean, the person that you're talking about, I think, from Sesame Street, um, there was one man who struggled a lot, and he played David on that
Right.
show. He was a very good actor, and he was very troubled in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
and he ended up dying an early death. I think it may have been from AIDS. And my heart is with him. I've been very friendly with Holly Robinson Peete, the actress, over the years. Her father played Gordon, the
Right.
first Gordon on Sesame Street, and so I've had a chance to talk to her a lot about the early days of Sesame Street. Now, Mark, Mr. Rogers,
Yes, Mr. Rogers.
I've watched a couple of documentaries on him, and I'm not aware of any scandals with Fred Rogers at all. What I do remember from Mr. Rogers is that he was one of the first to have a black man on his show. I think he played maybe one of the delivery people or something, and there was a moment on the show when it was hot out, and Mr. Rogers and this black actor put their feet into the same bowl of water to cool off. And some people were horrified this. People who didn't think that black children and white children should share the same pool. And the fact that Mr. Rogers was showing, it's okay for us to share the same water. Because just because people are black, their blackness is going to rub off onto our feet. I mean, things that people were scared of was nonsense. And so I laud Mr. Rogers for being actually one of the first social activists and showing us as a minister that we should get over our fears of people who don't look like us. Now, are you aware of something from Mr. Rogers' past?
There was a couple of documentaries that talked about some of his early history, and there was a little bit of things, because even his own widow said that he wasn't necessarily a saint, and there were some things of his talk as to whether he was bisexual or not along those lines. So there have been a couple of documentaries that pointed to some of his history and everything, including one that came out, I think, a few years ago. So there have been a couple of documentaries.
Well, my goodness, that is news to me. I have not heard anything about that, but I will certainly look into that. But again, if he was bisexual, there's in my view, there's no sin on that. I mean, you can say if he was married to his wife, but I honestly, I've never heard any of this. I don't know that that's necessarily true. I mean, one of the things that I write about in my book, I'd like to get back to my book if we could, Mark, in the 15 minutes we have left, is that you don't necessarily believe what you read. I mean, the Inquirer made up a lot of shit. They really, really did. And there were some people who got the Inquirer, and that was their newspaper. Instead of reading the New York Times, the LA Times, the Washington Post, their newspaper was the Inquirer, and whatever was in the Inquirer was the truth. Well, take it from someone who worked at the Inquirer for 3 years, I can tell you a lot of that was completely made up just to sell papers. And I could work hard on a true story, and they would take that story and make it sensationalized just to sell more papers. So we know now with Donald Trump especially, do not believe what you're being told, because it may be completely fabricated just to get a reaction or get votes.
No, that's very much true, and everything, and along those lines, and in that space, and all in that way. And by the way, there was a Mr. Rogers episode that apparently was banned and everything, because apparently that was in '83, because it talked about war and diplomacy and a couple of other things. So there were a couple of things about Fox, Mr. Rogers, that were interesting and everything that I have run across, because I do remember there's a documentary festival, it's called Full Frame, and I do remember them showing a movie that talked about some of his history and all along those lines. But you mentioned earlier the black TV shows, and I did have the pleasure a couple of times of meeting Ernest Thomas and some of those other people.
Yes, Ernest Thomas, who I love. Now, Ernest Thomas played Raj.
Yes.
On What's Happening. I had a wonderful interview with him for a magazine called Closer Magazine. And then, like I said, I met him just a couple months ago with the whole cast of the surviving cast of What's Happening. And we were joined by J.J. Walker and a couple others from Good Times. And there's an example right there. Ernest Thomas is a bisexual man. He's talked about that. that he had role models who were gay. He's never been married. He has certain children that he fosters and advises. They look up to him as a role model. But I certainly don't dislike Raj Ernest Thomas for being honest about what he feels he was born with in terms of his attraction. So, but I interrupted you, and I'm sorry, Mark. What was your
No,
question?
no problem. I was just curious about who the ones that you met other than Ernest, because I did love both of those shows, What's Happening and Good Times, and another other one. So I was just curious because I know that Bernadette Stannis, who was on Good Times, that's from here, and she is still
Love her.
living.
Yes, I love her. She was also on our panel. Yep, she was there as well. As long as the actor, as well as the actor who played Dwayne on What's Happening, and Michael Evans, he was also on our panel. The actor who played Michael Evans on Good Times. And I will tell you that during that panel, Raj Ernest Thomas, did his kind of Raj laugh. Can you remember that laugh he had? That kind of that kind of laugh he did, and the actor who played Dwayne did his hey hey hey, which I loved. Now Jimmy J.J. Walker would not do. You of course remember JJ's signature line, right?
I do. Yeah.
What did he say?
Oh, I'm trying to. He had so many signature lines. I'm trying to remember the one you're talking about, but it's.
Well, the big one was dynamite.
Dynamite, right? Dynamite.
He wouldn't do that. He wouldn't do that on the panel. He said he's been asked to do that too many times, and I think he feels that he's been stereotyped as JJ saying dynamite. So instead, I had Ernest Thomas and all of the other actors and the audience do dynamite, and that was kind of a great moment that I got to share with all of them. And there's a photo I have of that up on my website, which is whenyoustepUponAstar.com. Mm-hmm. That's the title of my book, When You Step Upon a Star. And I have a website, whenyoustepUponAstar.com, and you can find a photo of me from just a couple months ago taken with the cast of What's Happening and Good Times. Great people. Let me ask you, what were your favorite shows when you were a kid?
Well, I definitely loved Good Times. I loved Sanford and Son. Still love watching episodes of Sanford and Son, even though it was a stereotype of conservatism. And some people might even say that you mentioned Donald Trump, but he might play into it. But I did love both the Jeffersons and All in the Family. And I even loved, speaking of a show that was breaking a stereotype, because it actually was a early version of feminism, but I loved Maude, and I also loved the Mary Tyler Moore Show. So there were a number of shows that I enjoyed as a kid, and I also am a sci-fi fan, so I enjoyed some of the Star Trek and Star Wars and everything. I just wanted your take on Star Trek, because there was people like the lady that played the lieutenant, the first African-American lieutenant.
Nichelle Nichols, who played Aurora. I loved her. I adore her. And you mentioned The Jeffersons, one of my favorite shows. I mean, right behind me in my office, I have an illustration of George and Wheezy, who I just absolutely loved. Isabel Sanford and Sherman Helmsley. Sherman Helmsley, I'll tell you, another gay man. Mm-hmm. Sherman Helmsley was gay. He absolutely was. And I think he's an incredible actor that he could so believably play a husband who was in love with Louise. Yeah. We just celebrated Marla Gibbs's 92nd birthday, just I think last week. What a legend she is, Florence. You were talking about all of those shows. And forgive me, what was your one question about which of those shows?
Yeah, you asked me about those shows, but which ones I enjoyed, and I was turning it back to you. I was asking which one of them you enjoyed and everything, because I mean, another show that you talk about in your book, and apparently you found some dirt about them, but it was a very popular show. It was not a show that I watched a lot, but I know a lot of women that are into the Desperate Housewives as well as the soap operas. And even though I went to Marquette for my journalism degree, I do remember a lot of people that got caught up in the relationship between Luke and Laura back there in the 80s, and a number of other popular soap opera type deals, even the Dynasty days and everything. So I just wanted your take on some of the dirty laundry you learned from both the day and nighttime soap operas, and just your take on soap operas in general, because even now we have these modern day soap operas like the Real Wives of Atlanta or the Real Wives of whatever.
Well, yeah, I'll tell you this. I did love soap operas. I remember watching them with my grandmother, and I was very much into General Hospital and Luke and Laura. And since we're I think this is a show with do you have a large Black audience? Is that right, Mark?
It's a large Black audience, but the two founders are white, so we have a diversity of audience members because we even have folks that are. One of the founders is a engineer by training, that being Kim Calhoun. The other is a pension attorney. So we have a diversity of audience.
Terrific. Well, I love Luke and Laura. They had friends, Brian and Claudia, who were Black friends, and I remember I loved all my children. I loved Tad and Jenny, but I also equally loved Angie and Jesse. And you mentioned some of these primetime shows. My partner and I, we're now rewatching Dynasty, and I tell you, that show got a lot more fun once Dominique Devereaux came to Denver. I mean, the incredible Diane Carroll, and I did get to meet Diane Carroll, and I have a photo in the book of me with Diane Carroll. I absolutely adored her. And I think it's disgusting that so many of these shows, Dallas and Knots Landing, for instance, they never had a Black character on that show. Falcon Crest, right. They never had a Black character on that show. And I just think these are shows that ran for 13, 14 years. And I will say those shows should really be embarrassed. And I mean, and I give it to Dynasty and Aaron Spelling for bringing in a lead character, Dominique Devereaux, and having her being part of that canvas for so many years, just as much as Linda Evans and John Forsythe and Joan Collins.
And not just Dominique, but Troy Bear also played the daughter in that.
Jackie, yeah, I didn't feel they really did enough with Jackie ever. I mean, she always whined about wanting her parents back together, and I don't think they knew what to do with her.
Yeah, they didn't know what to do with her. But what are your thoughts? We still got about another.
But let me just say this though. What I'm really excited about, Mark, daytime soaps have been on the down. They've been going. No one's been talking about them much in years, and there used to be, I think, like 16 daytime soaps or 19 daytime soaps on the air. Now there have only been 4. There hasn't been a new daytime soap in, I don't know, over 20 years. This September, CBS is introducing a brand new soap opera.
Oh, wow.
And it's called The Gates, and it is a soap opera with an all-Black cast.
Oh, wow. That'll be interesting.
It's a half-hour show. It's about a very wealthy family, or maybe families that live behind a gated community called the Gates, and it has some one of the writers of General Hospital helped create this show, and I think it's really exciting. Not only that they're giving a chance to a new daytime soap opera, but the fact that they are focusing on Black families, and this is part of an initiative that the CBS network did with a Black coalition to help bring more diversity to television. So I'm very excited to watch this new show, The Gates.
That sounds wonderful. What's your take? Because I'm a fan of it. I don't know whether you're a fan, but something that is been around forever, but it is fun watching both the old version as well as the new versions. But what is your take on crime shows? Because I'd be lying if I said that I don't love watching Law and Order, Criminal Intent, NCIS, and a number of the other crime shows. And of course, there are newer ones, and I'll even go back and sometimes watch old ones like Matlock and Rockford Files, and a number of those. Even the one Texas Walker Ranger.
Walker Texas Ranger. Yeah,
Walker Texas Ranger. Right, I said it backwards, but I just wanted your take on these crime shows, because crime shows have been popular for a number of years, and they do seem to have a rebirth, because there's entire networks where you can watch the old ones and everything along those lines.
I think for whatever reason, I was never too into crime shows, and I think that I mentioned I was an only child, and my dad died when I was 5 years old, and I think I really used television as sort of a portal to escape into happy fantasy worlds, and so for me that meant kind of adopting the Brady Bunch cast as kind of my surrogate family. And I mean, imagining myself living up in that tower, on the east side with George and Wheezy, and welcoming in the Willises, for parties. So, I mean, I kind of chose comedies, mainly, and maybe shows like The Waltons and Little House on the Prairie, sometimes Westerns, but especially now living in Los Angeles, we got enough real crime here that I don't need to watch any more fake crime on my TV. So
that makes a lot of sense. I don't need to watch fake crime and everything. But what was your take on because I used to, you asked me about shows I used to love watching.
Yeah.
I did love watching Happy Days and even Welcome Back Carter and even some of the spinoffs of those shows. But I just wanted your take on
Yeah, no,
those shows
I
as well.
loved Happy Days and Laverne and Shirley, and Three's Company was one of my favorites, and Heart to Heart. And really, one of the things I write about in my book is that I was this child, like I said, who had this dream of having these people be my surrogate family. And I was very lucky in that I got to come out here to LA over 30 years ago, and I met all of them. And then when I was working for the Hallmark Channel, I had a chance to produce reunions where I brought the cast of Dynasty together and the cast of Little House on the Prairie and Star Trek: The Next Generation. And so in the back of the book, there's about 15 pages of me with these reunited TV casts to see how they looked. And a lot of them, these reunions were right before a lot of them started dying. You know, I have a photo of me with the Gilligan's Island cast, and there's only one cast member still alive from that show, and that's Tina Louise, who played Ginger. One of the reunions I was most happy to do was I did a tribute to one of my heroes, Robert Guillaume, who played Benson.
Yeah,
and he started out on Soap, and then he went over to his own show, to Benson. And I was able to pull together the actors from Soap who played Chester Tate and Jessica Tate, and I got Billy Crystal to send a tribute to Robert Guillaume, and then I had Clayton from Benson come on the show. And I got to tell you, Robert Guillaume was so beloved, and he was crying during that interview, during that 2-hour show, and we got him an award in recognition of his lifetime achievement. And, wow. And Robert sent me a lovely note. Bob Guillaume sent me a lovely note right before he died to thank me for what that meant to him. And there is a photo in the book of me with Robert Guillaume and cast members from Soap and Benson, and able to honor some of these legends right before they died was really a special part of my career. And I think people who love nostalgic TV will really enjoy reading my book. And finding out about how I got to meet these people, what they were like, and how I got to give them some of the love that I felt that they gave to me.
No, and along those same lines and everything, because I think I've referenced that because I'm here in Durham, North Carolina, which of course is not that far from Mayberry and Mount Airy, which is a real town. So I just wanted your take, because there are a few members left of the Andy Griffin family and all along those lines. So I just wanted your take on Andy Griffin and his legacy as well, and because definitely we do know that Ron Howard came out of that, and he's gone on to his own fame and fortune, not just as Opie and not just his character on Happy Days, but also as a well-known director and everything. But I just wanted your take on the Andy Griffin cast and family, because I do remember, even though it's kind of sappy and kind of corny, Gomer Pyle was a fun show to watch, and all along those lines. And I, of course, loved MASH back in the day. But I just
well, this is it's new now, so I have to get to the interview. So this is the last question I had time to answer. But I had to do some really deplorable things when I was at the Inquirer, and that sometimes meant notifying people that their loved ones had died. We were a news organization, and they wanted to get quotes from people, and I actually had to call Mr. Andy Griffith and tell him that his son had overdosed and died. And and I was like, I hope he wouldn't pick up the phone. And he did. He lived, I think he lived in North Carolina because he was shooting Matlock there, and then just ended up really just enjoying life there and stayed there.
The question I get everybody gets to ask, and I was going to ask you something really quickly, but I forgot about, I understand everything. But because I get all my guests to come on to say how they can be reached, how they can be contacted, and a message of positivity that they would like to share with our global audience. Because like I said, Pod TV is a global network, but we just saw on the Olympics, and some people think that is one of his weaknesses. Somebody that is very much into Scientology, Tom Cruise, do a whole Hollywood stunt as they were getting ready to go and carry the Olympic flag to that whole area of LA. And I do know that you have some history with Scientology as well. So I didn't know if you had time to talk a little bit about that and any message of positivity that you want to share, because I do know that Tom Cruise is part of that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'll wrap up. I do have a chapter in my book about Scientologists. I personally don't understand it. A lot of that just doesn't make sense to me. How L. Ron Hubbard. He was the founder of Scientology, and he started out sort of as a science fiction writer. And it seems to me, as an outsider, that a lot of that science fiction sort of blended into the creation of that religion. But yeah, a lot of Hollywood celebrities have been Scientologists. John Travolta, you mentioned Tom Cruise, Priscilla Presley. There was talk that Will Smith and Jada Pinkett, I think that they were flirting with the idea when they were very close to Tom Cruise for a while. They've never said that they actually were members. But yeah, I ended up on their do not talk to list when I was interviewing Kirstie Alley, and I think I got that reversed. But I will say I interviewed Tom Cruise, and he was a lovely man, and he really took the time to really look me in the eyes and focus. So again, I'll just say that even though we may not understand Scientology and we may think some of their things are weird, just as we don't understand why the people down the block who maybe look different from us are weird, or we don't understand that, they're all people. These are all babies who were born from their mothers and wanted to try to find happiness in life, and they were hit with struggles like all of us are, and we all find different ways to happiness. And if Tom Cruise is getting something out of that faith, then, and he's kind to people and not really trying to inflict his beliefs on the rest of us, then sure, let him have that path. Again, there are some things about the Scientologists that I found very concerning. Some people, it does feel sort of cultish from what I understand, that people are sort of not given the free will to make up their own mind always. But yeah, part of the message of the book is to not judge a book by its cover and not believe what you read. Look deeper, question what you're reading. Get to know people who you don't understand, because you may find out that you have something in common. And, I think that, like everything, there are so many things now to focus on that make us scared and, kind of can make us panic. Yeah. But I think the key to trying to find a happy life is to wake up and focus on the things that are wonderful in our lives and how we can make our lives better. And a lot of the ways we can make our lives better is to help make other people's lives better.
I know you've got to run up and everything, and then I don't want to interview with your other interview and everything, but just really quickly, do you have any thoughts about, because I'm a fan of it, I'm a fan of art activism, but do you have any thoughts about, because we mentioned Dick Gregory earlier, people using entertainment or their fame as a platform to bring out their issues, whether that's Black Lives Matter or whether that's, as Dick Gregory talked about, with economics when he was living and everything. So I just wanted your take on folks using their platform and their fame either as entertainers or as athletes to talk about issues that they are passionate about.
Well, I got to say, I think I'd much rather hear somebody get up and talking about what we can do to change some of the oppressions in the world. There was a gymnast who was competing in a hip hop event, breakdancing event at the Olympics, and she started her performance by revealing a cape, with a message about helping free women who are being oppressed. And forgive me, I don't know the country. If it was Somalia, I apologize for not knowing that. But good for her for using that platform of notoriety to draw attention to some of the atrocities that are being done in the world, where women are being tortured and not being allowed to go to college. I'd rather listen to that message than see Britney Spears on her Instagram shaking her butt and pole dancing. So I think it matters what the message is. And if someone believes in something passionately that can really help other people, can help change the world, then bravo to them. So I guess I would just say to your listeners, if there's been anything in this conversation that has appealed to them, then I would invite them to give my book a chance. Check out When You Step Upon a Star, and it's available on Amazon and on BarnesandNoble.com. If you're open to finding out about somebody who's different, if you've kind of made up your mind and you don't like gay people and that's just the way you are, and you don't really want to learn about people who are Hollywood types, then this isn't the book for you. Then I would say maybe don't order this book. But if you want a fun ride and an adventure, and learning about someone who was repentant and went back and tried to change their ways to become a better, more honest person, then I think maybe there might be something in the book for you.
Well, I look forward to it. I'm going to add the book to my list of books and everything. I don't know how I feel about jumping into doing what they call dumpster diving to find some of that history, which apparently you had to do, and some of that. So I know other reporters that have had to do that as well, including some, I think, from the political landscape and everything. So I don't know that I've been.
I made plenty of mistakes, and every chapter ends with a lesson learned. I learned from all these mistakes, and I try to write these lessons so that no matter what you do in life or where you live in the world, I think these lessons can be applicable to you if you want to try to have a better life. Some of these lessons are just kind of funny and ridiculous, but others, I think they've helped me, and hopefully they can help other people. And Marc, I've really enjoyed this time on your show. Thank you for having me on. And I wish you a wonderful day.
I'm going to go to my other job, and I got to have some African dancers that'll be there. It's African dancers on Monday night, so I'll be seeing them coming in and doing their dance and hearing the drumming in the background. And then I've got some other shows that we'll be doing for the network as well while I'm there at the Cultural Arts Center. But I've certainly enjoyed this conversation. You've been an amazing guest, and I hope that we'll be able to get you back at some other times. I might reach out to Harlan or you directly, but I'd love to have you come back and share some of the stories that we didn't get to, because I know that there are so many tremendous stories that you have had in just this short hour and a few minutes.
Thank you. Yeah, please, order my book and make some notes and things that came up in the book, and if you have some certain questions, things you want to talk about from the book, I'd be happy to come back.
Sounds great. So
thank you.
With a couple of these ads and let Mr. Keck get on to his day, but we'll be adding the book to the bookstore on Pod TV as well. So hopefully we'll get some of the folks, not just myself, but even some of our founders reading that book as well. But I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation and look forward to having you back in the not too distant future. But we'll let you get on to your other interview.
Thank you, Marc. Thank you so much. Take care. Thank you, sir.
No problem. Bye.
I'd like you to imagine with me, if you will, opening an app where you can collaborate with like-minded individuals from around the world, get inspiration and in-app tools to launch and grow your business, as well as share your knowledge and earn compensation, all in one app. Well, the name of that app is Truso, short for Truly Social. Hi, I'm Matthew Newman, the founder and CEO of Truso, a new concept in social media. Truso is designed from the ground up to be a platform that's both social and empowering for all its users. How exactly do we do that? I'm glad you asked. First, Truso brings the world together via video. Psychologists assert that video provides a significantly more effective connection than audio only. When you enter a community on Truso, you're face to face. Second, on Truso, you don't have to have 1 million followers to monetize. Our business model allows all hosts and moderators to monetize, no matter the size of your following, by 1, producing fee-based content, and 2, inviting others to join the platform as subscribers. Even more, Truso has an in-app resource library with over 100 free resources, forms, and documents to help you build your brand and grow your business. Third, Truso is inclusive. The deaf and hard of hearing communities make up 360 million people worldwide. Unlike audio-only apps, Truso embraces its community, providing a networking platform that allows them to participate via video and closed captioning. We even have a deaf and hard of hearing foundation in the works as well. Fourth, Truso is both social and safe. We refer to Truso as a virtual extension of the beauty shop, barbershop, and brainchild of the community. A place where there's laughter, along with wisdom, growth-oriented conversation, and genuine connections in a safe space. Truso even has proprietary security to ensure we maintain a safe environment for everyone. Where are we at now? Truso is live, y'all. We've launched in beta, and we're acquiring users daily. We have an incredible development and marketing team, plus amazing celebrity influencers at the table, helping us spread the word around the globe, beginning within the African diaspora and beyond by creating a safe space for growth, connection, and collaboration. We're truly excited about Truso. We've created something special for which there is a global market. And we invite you to embark on this journey with us as a shareholder. The future for Trousseau is truly bright. Join us and let's go there together.
You know how people love to enjoy food and don't understand how to flavor their food or how to replicate a meal? They're interested in supplements but don't know where to begin? Well, what I do is I take the guesswork out of enjoying flavor and wellness with my flavorful spice blends so that they can create delicious meals with healing benefits. Can Do Spice was created to help cooks at any level enjoy healing through food. Every spice blend was designed to give added health benefits of natural herbs. Every blend is complete. There's no need to add any additional spice for a delicious meal. Saving you time and money while adding supplements to your meals can be both tasty and fun. My earliest memories in the kitchen began with my father, Kenny Can Do Bond, so it was fitting that I would name this line after him. I have always looked to natural remedies to supplement the body, and I found myself hiding herbs and minerals in foods for my family. That's when it hit me. Everyone needs Can Do Spice. Everyone should be having this. It's an exclusive brand for cooks at any level who want to create flavorful dishes with healing benefits that can satisfy the body and soul. Add a little spice to your life. Give Can Do Spice a try.
The only trick you need to save time and money is to shop at Aldi. Aldi. Shop differently. Limitless length plus volume. Sensational from every angle. New Lash Sensational Sky High Mascara. Only from Maybelline, New York. Everything that touches your baby should be this comforting. Pamper Swaddlers. The #1 choice of hospitals is 2 times softer. All right, Travago. Find me a hotel somewhere in Thailand where I can wake up with a view of the ocean. Awesome. The future. It's impossible to see. And when it's finally here, it might not be what you'd expect. It might just be better. Introducing Luxury Electric. Introducing Lucid Air. We're for those who love to discover, who don't need to travel to find something new, and who know when you spend less, you can discover even more at TJ Maxx and Marshalls. Smooth, velvety chocolate wrapped in precious gold. Ferrero Rocher.
Hi, Richard. How you doing?
Ahoy, Jennifer. Lovely to see you. I'm so excited we're partnering on Virgin Voyages.
Yeah, I'm really excited too, but I was thinking that maybe before we announce it, that we should decide on my official title at Virgin Voyages.
Yes, and I already have a few options for you.
Okay.
What about something catchy like, don't be fooled by the ship that I got. I'm now Jenny from the dock.
Okay.
Dame Jennifer Lopez.
Isn't there like a paperwork and like a sword involved?
Supreme Goddess of Mermaids.
You know what? Let's just tackle the title thing later. I'm just excited to share our gorgeous ships with the whole world.
Okay. Look, I'll brainstorm a little more and catch up soon on it. Mermaid in Manhattan?
I'm Dr. Sylvia Earle, a marine biologist, oceanographer, explorer, and I'm passionate about the protection of this blue planet. I grew up next to the ocean in the Gulf of Mexico, and I've witnessed how much the ocean has changed and how marine life has been endangered. But I know there is still time to help the ocean, which is why I was drawn to the Aponte family's sustainability mission. Explorer Journeys has a genuine ambition to connect people with the wonders of the sea, its marine life, its communities, spiritually, physically and intellectually. We share the same values and have the same objectives to deepen people's relationship with the ocean, to explore, protect, and restore. Explorer Journeys calls it the ocean state of mind, a sensibility that will ensure the protection of this precious blue planet. Through my foundation, Mission Blue, we're working on ocean conservation, inspiring hope with champions across the world. Beginning with my extraordinary role as godmother to Explorer One, we will be heralding a meaningful collaboration between myself, Mission Blue, and Explorer Journeys and the MSC Foundation towards preserving and restoring the world's oceans, the blue heart of the planet.
Hi, I'm Letty Velez, the CEO of Velez Global Enterprises and social enterprise ICU Latinas. For the earlier part of my career, I used to own a successful bus company in the Chicagoland area. At the time, I was the only Latina-owned bus company. But after many years in that business, I knew that I wanted to use my experience and knowledge to help others and impact more people on a larger scale. With my own eyes, I could see great disparities for the Latino community and knew that they were underserved and needed support. I know of the 2.3 million Latina entrepreneurs in the US, their average revenue is only $51,000, which is only 1/3 of the revenue of white women entrepreneurs. There is no way that they're tapping into their full potential, and I want to elevate my community and Latinas in particular. Through Velez Global Enterprises, we act as consultants for small businesses. We help with revenue growth, amplifying the brand, and access to capital, with a focus on grant writing and grant hunting. For me, a large part is about helping people overcome fears and helping them fuel access to opportunities. Through our ICU Latina program, we have created cohorts of learning to elevate their businesses and empower their dreams. It's all about teaching people how to fish. It is so moving that a bank like BMO believes in us and sees our value. Receiving the BMO Celebrating Women grant will help us help more people. Last year, we had over 250 participants, and at least 15% were Latina veterans. And my dream is to reach even more of the 2.3 million Latina entrepreneurs. As a person who grew up low income, I want people to know what we do and be proud of this little Puerto Rican that grew up in the hood. I'm obsessed with elevating people, bringing joy, and creating a community. And that is how I grow the good in my world.
Welcome to National Pension Partners, where retirement planning meets peace of mind. Today, we're diving into the 412(e)(3 plan, also known as a fully insured pension plan. This isn't just any retirement plan. It's the gold standard for stability and guaranteed benefits. How does it work? Simple. It's funded exclusively by life insurance and annuity contracts. This means no market risks, no actuarial assumptions, just ironclad guarantees. Think of it like this. You're a small business owner who hates surprises. The 412(e)(3 plan gives you predictable, stable contributions every year. Your future benefits are backed by insurance contracts, so you know exactly what you're getting. No guesswork, no headaches. But there's more. These plans are designed to maximize your contributions and offer significant tax advantages. And with National Pension Partners, you're not just getting a plan, you're getting a team of experts, attorneys, CPAs, actuaries, all dedicated to making your retirement as secure as possible. We provide personalized consulting, ensuring that your plan is tailored to your specific needs. Best part, initial consultations and proposals are absolutely free. $0, zero commitment. So if you want a retirement plan that's as reliable as your morning coffee, head over to nationalpensions.com. With the 412(e)(3 plan, your future is in safe hands. Retirement planning never sounded so thrilling. Perfect for small business owners who like their finances as predictable as Monday mornings. Stable contributions, ironclad guarantees, and serious tax advantages. It's the trifecta of financial security. And with National Pension Partners, you get a team of brainiacs, attorneys, CPAs, actuaries, ensuring your retirement is as secure as Fort Knox. Oh, did we mention the free consultations? That's right. You get a personalized expert proposal with $0 down. So, if you want a retirement plan that's as reliable as your morning coffee, head over to nationalpensions.com. Because when it comes to your future, boring is the new exciting. Retirement planning never sounded so thrilling. For more details, check out National Pension Partners at nationalpensions.com. Retirement planning never sounded so thrilling.